What's up everyone, my name is Jared, and today for my Wednesday video we're doing something a little different. So today, as you can see, I'm standing and not sitting in my desk, at my desk. My camera for that is not so great. It was my streaming camera. It's okay, it's kind of fuzzy. I get interference from the lights from my computer. So we're gonna try this. If you like this style better, let me know down below. If you'd rather have me sitting at my computer, kind of doing it that way, let me know down below also. Today, we're talking about how these new laptops are sporting this Intel i9 processor, and they're just not giving it adequate heat dissipation. So let's get into that in just a second. So every year, Intel releases new chips, and with every chip, it usually either becomes more power hungry or more power efficient, and it also becomes a little more powerful. Well, this year's chips, both desktop and laptop chips, they were more powerful for going from 4 cores to 6 cores, and they also were super, super hot. They had this on the desktop chips where you saw people like Linus Sebastian from Linus Tech Tips delidding all their CPUs to put liquid metal on them, because their thermal compound just wasn't cutting it. Or you saw people that were going in other directions because of how much heat they were putting off. And then you have manufacturers like Alienware by Dell. You have Apple now joining the party, as well as Acer and Asus, incorporating these new chips into their products, which is great, and that is what's expected every year that a new chip comes out. That is their refresh, that is them adding a little bit more power to their notebooks. Well, this year, a lot of people also had the option to do the i9. Instead of doing the i7, they also have the one step up, the mega CPU for a laptop, the i9. Well, that i9 in the Alienware costed around $3,300, and in Apple's new MacBook Pro, the 15-inch model, is well past that $3,000 mark to get that super powerful 6-core i9 CPU. But the problem being, if it ran hot on a desktop, what is it going to do in that smaller chassis? And if you go back and look at my video about the Alienware R5 2018, the one that I have is actually the i7 model. It's not the i9, just because I couldn't get that one at the time. But a lot of people who had the i7 as well as the i9 were complaining of a lot of thermal issues, whether it be bad paste from the manufacturer, not enough cooling capacity by the manufacturer, meaning the heatsink just wasn't cutting it, or just all-around thermal throttling, be it poor design, poor space, maybe not enough fans or not big enough fans. Again, combined or compounded with bad thermal compound or just a poor job of such, led to overheating and thermal throttling issues, which you want to use that i9 to its full potential and not be limited by something silly as heat, which they should have figured out before they released their product. Well, enter in the game Apple, who obviously has their thin and light MacBook Pros, which comes in at probably a quarter the size of an Alienware or Acer laptop, especially the gaming variety. Not only do you have a super slim aluminum chassis, but you have very tiny fans, to the point where they packed an i9 into their new MacBook Pro, the same i9, which could be in the Alienware 17-inch laptop, which obviously the chassis are hugely different. And the i9 MacBook Pro 2018 was performing in benchmarks about the same as the last year's i7, the model that I have, the one that I use. So what does that say? Well, first of all, if you're a manufacturer and you want to use that chip, you got to have adequate cooling capacity. You have to, or else there's no point in buying that chip. People are going to be pissed. It could cause more problems. Heat is the #1 killer for computer components, whether that be the actual processor getting too hot, other components getting too hot, your RAM, everything in a notebook is so tightly crammed together, heat is just going to spread throughout. I know when I use my MacBook Pro, the i7, last year's 2017 model, the fans spin up, ramp up like crazy, and that gets hot, especially being an aluminum chassis, which basically kind of acts like a giant heat sink. It gets very warm. Even my Alienware with the new i7 gets very hot, and I'm actually thinking about pulling it apart and repasting the heatsink. Not that I'm seeing thermal throttling issues on my particular notebook, but everyone else is saying that that is a very, very common problem. And the people who have the i9 are getting similar Cinebench scores that I am on an i7. And that just shouldn't be so. You have a way better processor. You're spending that money for a way better processor, and yet you are not getting the performance you're paying for. Which, in that case, why should you have that i9 version? People are just gonna not buy it if they can get the same performance out of a cheaper model. That's just a no-brainer. And in the case of the MacBook, if last year's generation is performing as good, or maybe they got that thermal capacity or thermal throttling under control because of the lower power chip or the lower heat dissipating chip in the 2017 model, there's no point to get a new model. It's going to be just as good if it's just as fast as rendering, if it's just as good as pumping out FinalCut Pro videos as the latest i9. You're not going to buy a new one. It's pointless. With that, I will say there is one laptop right now rocking the i9 that is actually worth the money, which would be the Asus Predator. So that laptop, whatever it may be doing, a Team Acer over there, they have got that cooling situation down to the point where their i9, which is an unlockable chip, all these i9s are unlockable, meaning you could overclock. The Alienware has its own built-in utility. I'm sure the Acer does, and I doubt the MacBook you can do it, but it is a capable chip of doing so maybe someone can figure that out. But there is headroom, so you could tweak that, even get more. If its adequate cooling capacity is right now, maybe pump out a few little more tweaks, and you might be rocking a seriously powerful and competent notebook that could be a desktop killer. But until these other manufacturers, there's no reason at all why Dell should be fumbling and messing up with its thermal issues. I mean, they have so much of a budget. They're such a big brand. And Alienware was once super respected in the community, which I still think they are, but people are starting to lose faith. If they're having issues with quality control, which a lot of people have mentioned, with simple things such as not having good thermal compound or just a poor application process, which is super easy, again, another quality control issue. And Dell being what they used to thrive on, their just-in-time inventory system, meaning they pretty much put that laptop together as you order it. There should be no issue. There should be no problem with them handling the thermal issues. And then over at Team Apple, I know their gig is thin and lights, and I do appreciate their style. Their design is top-notch, and I've truly yet to find a PC of adequate caliber, with the one being, which I think can compete, the Razer Blade, the new one from 2018. But again, I haven't seen that firsthand, and they are not sporting the new i9 chips. So they're obviously not dealing with this whole thermal throttling issue. The big reason why people have desktops and these elaborate cooling setups, such as myself, I have the Ryzen 1950X in my desktop setup. That is a huge CPU producing way more heat, and I have an elaborate setup to keep that chip cool, and it stays cool. I can do whatever I want. I can overclock it by 20, almost 30%, and still have it be not thermal throttling. It gets hot. The fans ramp up 100%, but as liquid cooled, it's got the whole setup. Alienware sported this new vapor chamber technology in their heatsink. Now, I haven't had an issue with my model, or my specific notebook, the one that I purchased, but many people with the same notebook, different notebooks, last year's or this year's, and especially the one that has the i9, are reporting some terrible thermal throttling issues. Between quality control, not enough cooling capacity, they're just saying that it is a piece of crap. And they're sending it back, they're getting replacements. That shouldn't happen with a laptop that you're spending a few $1,000s on. My laptop came in at $2,200 shipped to my house. The i9 model was, I think, $3,300 at the time that I was looking at, which there was a deal on. But still, so say $3,000, that is a lot of money to be spending on a notebook that you're gonna inevitably have to take apart and fix yourself because they did a poor job in the very beginning. And as far as Team Apple, you know, they have the thin and light. Again, like I said, they have that design down. They're doing a great job at that, squeezing all that stuff in very compactly. But if you're trying to put a very powerful CPU in a completely crammed chassis with just these tiny little fans and an inadequate heatsink, just don't do it. Don't offer that option. You're gonna have more problems for yourself than you're gonna have sales, because the first few people, the reviewers, Linus again, from Linus Tech Tips, reviewed this laptop and immediately saw it was thermal throttling. Others, Marquise from MKBHB, he absolutely saw this. Everyone's seeing it because it's so easy to replicate. You do an application with heavy load, FinalCut, anything CPU heavy, it's going to thermal throttle. And for those of you who don't know, thermal throttle is a threshold at which the CPU is then going to dial its speed down. Its core clock will go down in order to preserve itself. It's basically its life support system, right? It gets too hot, it's going to do whatever it can to manage that heat. Now, in an elaborate setup, the cooling is what takes care of that, and it lets it basically run free so that it can do as much work as it can, ramp up as much as it needs to, and still be all right. These laptops, MacBook, Alienware, it's not cooling quick enough to the point where the CPU thinks it's in danger and throttles itself back down. It's like a governor on a car protecting the important parts, not letting it go past that point anymore because it's gonna do harm to everything else in the notebook. So with that said, the whole reason for this video is that if you're gonna produce a laptop that has unmatched power, releasing the newest chips, the most powerful chips Intel has to offer right now, make sure it's a complete package. Alienware, make sure your thermal compound is on and applied correctly. Maybe use better thermal compound. Maybe this batch in these last few months of laptops is just not great. Try a different brand. Make sure it gets applied correctly. Make sure there's good quality control other than just the thermal issues. Make sure there's good quality control on your machines, or else you're going to lose some serious sales when Acer, Asus, MSI, Razer, all these other brands are going to be doing the same thing. And if they can do it better than you, you're going to lose that sale to another brand. And now Apple, you know, being that Apple is its own thing, there really is no competition besides Apple's own products. You're going to get cannibalized. If the i9 isn't going to compete on its own in a new level, a new class of laptop, you're going to lose sales to another product. And if that's going to be a high margin product for you, you got to make sure that thing works and works great and gives people a reason to buy it. Whereas if you're getting the similar, FinalCut export times on last year's i7, if you're getting, same benchmarks, the same, processing power, once this thing throttles down, there's going to be no reason for a consumer or a prosumer to buy that new laptop because it's going to give them no additional benefit. They're just going to say, well, my last year laptop is going to perform just as good. It's going to export this video just as fast. I don't need it. And for a company that definitely releases a refresh line every year, there has to be something that makes somebody want it just that much more. Has to be something that's going to push them to say, you know what, I'm going to upgrade this year rather than waiting a couple years. I still say to this date, my favorite MacBook was the 2015 Retina. I think at that point it was the perfect combination of thinness, I/O, and everything like that. Alienware, gone are the days of when you were super unique, back when Alienware was its own before Dell got involved. And I understand things changed, and I still appreciate the brand, but Dell as a big company, and you make some great XPS laptops with no issues, you got to step your game up. Fix this line before the name gets tarnished to the point where people don't want it anymore. And they will go to MSI, Asus, Acer. People already are going to Acer in their Predator line. People are already going to Razer for thin and lights. So I think, one, Alienware's got to make a thin and light laptop. They got to do something like Origin is doing with it doesn't have to be razor thin like the Razer Blade, but thinner, half an inch. MSI is doing their Stealth series. Asus is doing a really thin MacBook. Acer
is on Sunday, April 21st, 2019.
So Acer is making a thinner laptop. Asus is also making a thin laptop. Alienware has to do the same to start competing. The design is getting to be beat. They got to step that up, as well as quality control, again, or people are going to lose interest in that brand entirely. And again, the main point of my argument, the keystone of this whole thing is that if you're going to produce a laptop, or anything for that matter, with specific parts that are going to be power hungry and very hot, make sure there's adequate cooling. And if it's not going to be adequate cooling, you can't tell me that the people in the Apple R&D did not know that i9 MacBook Pro did not thermal throttle. I'm sure they did. And I'm sure it was just a weighted decision to see, do I release it and have the thermal issue, or do we hold it back and not offer it at all? So I understand that a decision had to be made, but I'm sure you also knew how it benchmarked and how it scored out to the point where if you knew that that laptop was going to throttle so bad that it competed with a last gen model, don't release it. Wait a few months. Wait till they have their big release in September for the new iPhones, and have that be a not a one more thing, because that's usually for really big stuff, but have it be your opening product launch. Have it be, by the way, we also improved the MacBook 15 for the i9. We added this, that, and the other thing. Maybe make it just a smidge thicker to accommodate for this more power-hungry processor. But they didn't. They jammed it in the same 15-inch chassis that they had. They reduced weight here, added some weight here. So it's basically the same weight, thickness, size as last year's and the year prior's 15-inch. Added that membrane to the keyboard, which I hope they don't have any more keyboard issues, because that's just not good. You use that obviously all the time, and they're just getting caught up with these little minute details that are just shooting themselves in the foot rather than just keep progressing with their lineup. They have a good product. I do use their product. I think they have something special in that thin and light segment, but they either gotta, if you're going for power, make it a little thicker. I wouldn't mind if the MacBook was just a 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch thicker, if that accommodated that better processor and more power. People who really want that power and want a desktop replacement are not gonna mind. People who want the gaming laptop with all that power to use for rendering, CAD, video editing, photo editing, whatever you do that needs a lot of power, don't mind having it be a little thicker, because that is the sacrifice they have to make sure they have a reliable, dependable machine that can do everything they need to. And if you're going to be running a thin and light, many hours of export of video or your 3D rendering, anything like that, there will be issues down the road getting that hot for that long a time. You'll burn out fans, you'll have heat problems. Back in the day in 2011 and 2012, the laptops got so hot it unsoldered the GPU from the logic board, and people, including myself, had to take the logic board out, stick it in the oven, and heat it back, heat those solder connections up again to have it actually fix itself temporarily so that the laptop will work again. If you get it that hot, things like that could and probably will happen again, especially when so many components on the new MacBooks are soldered to the logic board itself. It's just going to cause problems. You're going to have another one of these things where you're going to have warranty replacements, and especially now when something goes bad and you got to replace a whole board rather than the part, it could be expensive, especially for the consumer. And once you guys get involved with warranty issues, it's going to be expensive for the company also. It's just not a smart business decision. So let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that laptop manufacturers, or I guess computer manufacturers in general, should release a product before it's ready just to have it, or should they wait, make a little bit of changes so that that product is perfect? I myself think they should wait till it's perfect, but let me know what you think down below. Should they compete on a release schedule? Sound off down below. I'd like to hear what you guys think about it, because I know a lot of my viewers have been having issues with their Alienware. But if you have another brand of laptop that's rocking the new i9, let me know your experience. Is it good? Is it bad? Do you have thermal issues? What have you done to alleviate that issue? And we'll talk about it. So again, everyone, thank you for watching this video. Let me know about this new view, I guess I would say. Is it better or worse than me sitting at my desk? Let me know. So again, thank you for watching, everybody. My name is Jared, and I will see you all in the next video.